Prepare, respond, survive. When seconds count, train with the best. Fire facilities, custom steel towers built for real-world fire training. Be ready, be resilient.
At the Fire Store, you'll find everything but the truck, helmets, boots, turnout gear, and more that you can count on. Shop now at thefirestore.com.
Welcome back to another edition of Fire Engineering's Tactical Impact. I'm your host, Jim Silvernail. With me is my co-host, Jason Hoevelmann. Jason, it's great to be back on the air here, and we're going to talk about tactics. This is a show about tactics, and that's exactly what we did for you this edition, is that we went and we found you a tactics article that really fits the bill. This is an article that is from our September Fire Engineering. And let me try to pull it up here for us all and take a look. Here it is, September edition. And let's go straight to the article. Here it is. And the article is entitled, Understanding a Tenable Space, a Foundation for Focused Aggression. It's a fantastic article. It was an easy read, a good read, but it was exactly what we're trying to achieve here with fire engineering. And without further delay, let Jason introduce our guest and our author of this awesome article.
Yeah, we're excited to have the author of that incredible article, and that was something that we strive to do here on Tactical Impact, is bring the authors to you so that they can give you more information about what the article's about, why they wrote it. And today we're happy to have Peter Morotto from Bridgeport, Connecticut. He's acting chief of training for Bridgeport right now. He's got 30 years in the service, a lot of instructor. He's a program coordinator for Connecticut Fire Academy, adjunct instructor for various regional fire schools. He's founder of Mission CIT, fire training consulting business. And he also is on a review panel for UL and is the drill master for Bridgeport Fire Department Recruit Academy. Peter, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us. And anything I missed in your bio?
No, it sounded good. Again, thanks for having me on tonight. It's humbling to be on. I'm glad that you enjoyed the article. Like you said, and being an easy read, that was the intent of it. And it was kind of a compilation of me wanting to, get the message that I've always been preaching out there, about what is a tenable space. And as I started just sitting down and writing it was very easy to write because I've been talking about it for many years. But I'm happy to be here, and I'm glad you guys, actually read it, which I'm, very happy for. Thank you.
You hit one of the big topics that Jason and I love, and that's aggression. There's this big thing out in the fire service where, being aggressive is dangerous and scary, but really it's what we command, and it's what we want as fire chiefs. We want our people to aggressive, and people are probably tired of hearing us say it because we say it every show, but it's so true. And, in your introductory paragraph, it really caught me. And the bridging the gap and cultivating focused aggression. And I think that's what hit me with this article, and it made me want to read more. And that's what you captured. So kind of talk about that. Talk about bridging the gap.
So absolutely, and I'll go into the whole aggression and people, like you said, are scared of aggressive tactics, and are you being unsafe? So for me, and what I like to, the message is that in the fire service, I know I've lived my fire service career this way. We are a lot of type A people that have a lot of pride in what we do. Okay. And to have that type A personality and want to be the best, we'd be lying to each other if we didn't say we wanted to be the best on the fireground. So for me, through my years I've been very, I've had the opportunity throughout my career to work in very busy places in the Bridgeport Fire Department. I've had many opportunities to go out there and hone my craft and learn from a lot of the best that were out there, and then put my spin on it and teach. So to me, being aggressive on the fireground was always who I wanted to be, right? It's who we've all type of emulated, because You have a pride in yourself. You have a pride in your patch that you wear on your uniform, right? And we want to show you how good we are. So for me, my teaching career was always built on looking at the people that came before me, and even in my fire service career, not only teaching, I should say, I wanted to be those giants in the fire service. I wanted to be the best, and I worked at it, and through the many hours of obviously fireground, working on the fireground and through teaching hours. And again, given opportunities to do so, I kind of created in my head who I thought I wanted to be. So to me, the word aggression or aggressive is not a dangerous word. And some may differ, and opinions may differ. Um, I always wanted to be the best on the fireground. And to me, to be the best on the fireground, I had to understand the fireground because there's a fine line of being aggressive and being reckless. So if I was able to understand the fire ground, I could still operate at the level that I thought was acceptable to be aggressive on the fire ground. And that's kind of the message that I started giving out to my students, to try to build who do you want to be? A lot of my recruits, I'll say this day one, who do you want to be on this job? Right? And I'm not expecting them to pick one person. I'm expecting them to pick a persona of who they want to be, right? And what you want to be in the fire service. So all of us may have different opinions, but I promise you, all of us want to be the best. We want to do the best work at the jobs. We want to be the fastest on the fire ground. We want to be the person that says, you know what, you're a good fireman. So to me, understanding the fire ground, and I even broke it down into bridging the gap would be understanding building construction and fire behavior. If you could understand, and again, my opinion, and my opinion may vary from several others, but I was never the person teaching that would say it's my way or the only way. Again, I always start with all my classes is this is just a way. It's not the way, right? And I think there might be people out there that I don't like to teach a canned program, and that's why it's taken me so long to actually put pen to paper for an article, because it had to be the right thing for me. It had to be something that if I wrote it down, I had to truly understand it. I wasn't just writing it to write it. It had to be something that I truly believed. So what I tell a lot of my students or people that sit in my classes, there's a lot of things that are going to make a good firefighter. Okay. Some people come into the service and they want to be, a good rescue, right? They want to be on the rescue. They want to have good technical rescue skills, and that's great. I've been there, done that. Most of my career was on a heavy rescue as a fireman and as an officer, and I loved it. But what do I tell the brand new person in the firehouse? If you want to be safe and effective on the fire ground, understand two things that will save your life, and it's building construction and fire behavior. So for me, it's been a long transition and a long road to truly not what my beliefs are, but where I could, and I don't need to sound irrational, but to where I can speak of it and believe in it. So years back when modern fire dynamics and the modern thinking in the fire service came out, as well as I do, there were two sides to that coin. There was a side to the coin that said, yep, this is the way it's going to be because it's science tactics. And then there was the old school side that said, yep, go to a couple fires and we'll talk. Right. And to me, it was, how are we going to interface that gap? Right? How are we going to interface that? Because again, like I said before, if I could understand the science behind what I'm trying to teach, I can be aggressive. I could still have that movement on the fire ground. I could have that aggressive posture because I'm understanding it, but I'm not being reckless, right? If I'm just going in there blindly saying that, I'm going to show you that I'm the toughest guy in the fire ground, that may work for sometimes, right? Knock on wood. I've been there. I've done that a few times. Been in a couple situations that, that weren't that great over my career. But again, if I can do it in a way that I can make sure we're keeping everybody safe on the fire ground, to me, that's the overall win. So that's been my message with understanding and navigating the modern fire ground. And again, I hate to use the term modern fire ground, but to me, it's just relevant because that's what people understand. What's the modern fire ground? Someone will ask me, they'll raise their hand. What's the modern fire ground? I'll say, well, it's understanding vent limited, flow path, and everything that goes along with it. Now, years ago, you said the word flow path and understanding or controlling the flow path, right? You'd get the bullshit flag thrown real quick from the back of the room. Well, hold on a second. What does this flow path mean? Right? So the message that I bring is understanding vent limited and flow path is nothing more than understanding coordinated fire attack. And when you say coordinated fire attack, the old timers in the back of the room go, "Oh yeah, you're right." Right? So it's kind of bridging the gap with the whole look at how we operate on the fire ground. So to me, that's why I started to go ahead and I started heavily teaching. Again, being very fortunate to get in early in my career at the Fire Academy and working my way up to program coordinator through recruit program. I was very fortunate to work with a lot of people with a lot of time on the job. And I was there to learn and again, listening and trying to hone your skills and work into different areas of the program. And I started heavily teaching engine operations. Again, fortunate, given opportunities to help rewrite the modern look of the program and what worked and what didn't work. And I could even go back in my teaching career now and say, we taught a lot of things. We taught a lot of things, and some were really good, and somewhere, I don't know, right? And one of the things I talk about now, which it's okay, is nozzle movement, right? Dare I say water mapping? Some people get upset when you say water mapping; they don't like to hear it, gets them nervous. But water application, right? Getting water where it needs to go, it really makes a difference on the fire ground. And if you'd have told me that 20 years ago without being educated and really, really diving into this now, I can see where there's some resistance to it. But you have to take the message out of everything that's new and everything that's old and interface it to what's going to work. And that's kind of why I touched on this particular subject. So I started with the Tenable Space class, probably probably 4 or 5 years ago now. And I said, well, understanding the tenable space. But well, why would I come up with such an idea? Again, working on companies over the years that, where I work, we do a lot of what we call unprotected search. We search without a handline. We have plenty of staff and we can put 50 people on initial alarm and we search ahead of the hose line. Okay. So truly teaching people what that is to identify a tenable position. And depending on your community or where you work or where you live, or even in the teaching world, a tenable space is going to mean something totally different, right? Based on your staffing, based on your level of experience, based on the buildings you fight these fires in. So I looked at it, and really what it came from was I drew this out of a tenable position because in 2012 I got caught in a flashover at work. I was a ladder company officer. I got caught in a flashover with another firefighter. Knock on wood, here today, had some burns, destroyed our equipment, but the outcome was okay. So to me, that's where I started thinking about, when I look back to that time period again, and it's a little bit back, 2012. And I say to myself, why didn't I recognize the signs, or did I recognize the signs? And I did, but again, old thinking told me differently, right? Now, understanding, vent point, vent limited, right? Controlling flashover without water with just vent points, you can do if you had no choice. The old adage of opening up, you know, we were always told move in and open up as quick as you can, as quick as you can, ahead of the line, ahead of the line. But now, what are we losing when we're opening up? Okay. We always thought it was just breaking windows that would create a vent point, that would create an untenable position. So for me, in the position I'm in now, being a division officer on the fire floor, I get to watch a little bit more now than actually do. And a lot of things that I witnessed over the last, 5 or 6 years, where members will get in, they'll start opening up spaces and think it's okay without a handline, right? But as we know, looking at taking a window or opening up sheetrock is going to cause the same untenable position. And no one really kind of understood that. They might understand it when you talk about it, but they didn't understand it at the point because, oh, I'm not taking a window. What do you mean? It's okay. Well, no, you're opening up. And I use the knee wall scenario in my article. To me, operating on those top floor 2.5s are the most dangerous position that we operate in, especially in the Northeast, especially in like I said, most of our bread and butter fires. We go into 2.5-story wood frames, and 2.5-story wood frames. The top floor is usually a third floor apartment, full size third floor apartment. But what's the difference? right? Maybe only one way in, one way out. They might not have that rear access. Okay, so operating in there becomes very dangerous for us. We get way ahead of the hand line, we start moving, we start opening up. All of a sudden, the energy that's in those knee walls is going to create an untenable position, right? Just like opening a window, right? Taking a vent, right? What we're going to create? We're going to create a temporary improvement period. It's going to lift for a second. And that's way different than I was taught when I came into the service. When I came into the service, it was, hey, open up, take the windows, let it lift, right? Now we know from, from UL and from all the studies that are going on that yes, you will get a lift in that knee wall. You will get a lift in that top floor, but you're creating a temporary improvement period.
I was just about to
And
ask about the temporary improvement
yeah,
and how dangerous that can be, or to the false security of what you just did.
yeah. Absolutely. So, you get a truck crew or you get a rescue crew that's up, they're searching ahead of the hand line. They get into one of these 2.5 top floor frames. They're moving across the floor. There's nowhere access. So there's only one way in, one way out. Well, now we know that there's 10 people coming up in the stairwell, right? The person at the bottom of the stairs doesn't really know conditions at the top of the stairs. So the stairwells aren't clear. The hand line's on its way, but it's not there yet. Firefighters get up there, they think, well, I got to do something. Oh, it's the most heat I've ever felt around me. It's oppressive. I got to do something, right? And they take that glass.
Yeah,
Well,
you're
taking
just
that glass, right,
feeding
is
it.
going to create
Right.
that uncontrolled, untenable position. It's not necessarily, if, it's when you're going to light
Right.
the room off,
I
right?
remember trying to come back and defend the principles of modern fire attack, and
Hmm.
my cronies would be like, "Yeah, but you know damn well that you got a lift when you opened up that window." Yeah, that's
Yeah.
absolutely true, but that's that false, temporary improvement period, and then it came back with
Hmm.
a fury if you didn't have a handline in place. A lot of times you would get that
Absolutely.
lift, but then we'd have the handline so you could defend it, and we didn't realize if you didn't have a handline, you were screwed. You know?
You're done and there's nowhere to
Right.
go because it's on you. And the message is to the newer firefighters, when you feel that oppressive heat that's on you, no matter how bad it is, if you're feeling gear saturation to the point where you're like, holy shit, I can't move, you got to get back. You got to locate the stairs. You got to get to a tenable space because taking even that sheetrock is going to create, if there's that heat energy in those knee walls at that point, when you start popping sheetrock, where is it going? It's going to light the room off still because conditions are still right. So listen, the temporary improvement period is unique because everybody wants to know, well, how long is the temporary improvement period going to be? And I always jokingly say, if I knew that, I promise you I'd be retired, I'd be teaching all around the world because I could tell you when the temporary improvement period is going to be and when you got to be safe and get out of the building. But nobody knows. It could be 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 60 seconds. We don't know. You're going to get a lift. You're going to get that false sense of, okay, I'm good, until you're not. And that's what's most dangerous when operating, again, ahead of the hand line, right? Well, how do you conquer the temporary improvement, or how do you conquer, having those conditions? Well, by having a hand line with you when you open up. And then you go, well, does everybody kind of know what we're doing here? Yeah, that's called coordinated fire attack, right? It's what the old timers had to do. I think back to my father and what he taught me. He was on a job for over 30 years. They had no choice because they weren't wearing their Superman suit. They didn't have a hood. They didn't have, what we wear. So they couldn't get as deep as we get initially, right? They had to use remote water application. They had to do all that. They had to move slowly in and cool the common hallway, cool the area, get to the seat of the fire, then put it out. And I see us doing a little bit more of that now, kind of going back to those older roots. And I hate to say older tactics, but an older thinking, because that's actually what's keeping us safe while operating through a building, right? And that goes back to being aggressive. Okay, if I can understand it, I can be aggressive. If I have to make a move really quick and search an area, all right, let's get in, let's search. Let me hit with the tick. How are we searching with the tick? What should we be looking for? Jokingly, I say, I'm never looking for victims with the tick. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, because you guys get burn building scars with these goddamn ticks, because what are you looking at? You're looking at through a burn building and you're looking at things that are on the ground that are white. Totally different when you're in a burning building. So what should you be looking for with the tick? Heat currents and movement, right? If I can just catch a couple glimpses of some heat currents rolling across the ceiling or licking around a corner, okay, there's the fire. Let me get some water application. Again, from a position of advantage. Even if I can get a line to the top of the stairs and keep that solid stream straight at the ceiling, I could deflect it, kick it back in the room for a second, allowing a search crew possibly to hit a bedroom or something while I'm getting that line in place to get to the seat of the fire. It's going to make all the difference, right? And that's truly how I've kind of rethought everything of how I'm teaching on the fire ground, for sure.
Hey, Peter, talk a little bit about, I know you go into the size up, you go into
Yeah.
legacy of void spaces. Talk also a little bit about the familiarity that breeds risk.
So it breeds risk because we become familiar with, like I said, like training scars from burn buildings. We become familiar with the buildings that we go to, right? But I'll use that 2.5 frame that I talk about in the PowerPoint. If I go to the same 2.5 story wood frame or a 3 story wood frame, balloon frame constructed building where I work, all those buildings were built from the 20s into the 40s. Okay. Those buildings looked way different and the layouts were way different when those buildings were built to how we operate in them now. So we get into those buildings thinking we might be in different positions, but most of the buildings now that we go to, every sitting room that was in the front of the house, remember they'd be called like a parlor room or something like that. Those are all bedrooms. A lot of them are SROs. A lot of the hallways are chopped up. So when you get into these positions, you may think you're landmarking properly because you've done it 1,000 times, and then you get in a position where you become disoriented because you didn't obviously look at your interior size up factors. You're not really watching your vent point or your vent. Are you vent limited when you go in? Now, listen, I'm not going to be a guy that's going to tell you go in and close doors behind you when you do a search, a controlled flow path. That's just not me. Listen, guys talk about it. That's great. I don't like doing that. Okay, I like controlling the flow path and getting a hand line in place to control it. But again, staffing will dictate that. So understanding the risk involved with searching these buildings when you truly don't understand what they can be now or what they were intended to be. So again, I think that's where in some of these buildings we get into those training scars, even though it's not a training building, but we get some of that because we think we anticipate. And to me, that's where the use of obviously watching where that flow path is coming from, using the tick, watching the heat currents. I talk about until I got really involved with the UL stuff and looking at what they were doing. I wish 20 years ago I knew more of that. And I'll give you an easy example, which I use with a lot of my students now. If I was going to give you 3 doors and tell you to open a door and look at it, and I can just tell you with smoke and neutral plane and intake and exhaust, right? What's going on, where the fire is. Like if I opened the door 25 years ago when I was a young firefighter and I saw, a little bit of intake low and exhaust high, it still would not have keyed in my brain, oh, the fire's got to be on that floor. I would have thought, well, there's a fire in the building somewhere and I got to go find it. But now, as you really look at what goes on with the science behind it and the studies, I understand now where I'm truly seeing that defining line that, 99.9% the fire is going to be on that floor. Or if I open that and I have floor to ceiling smoke with a little bit of, aggression behind it, a little turbulence, I probably got a good fire below me. Right. And that's something, if we move away from the inner city 2.5 story wood frames and we move into more of, residential neighborhood, larger type homes, right? That's something that plagues us. So like the community I live in, right? That plagues our volunteer fire service here because larger homes, open spaces, you open a door on the first floor, I got good smoke from everywhere. There's a good chance that that full finished walkout basement below you is on fire. So obviously navigating those two types of fires completely different for sure. So, I mean, I wish I knew those, those, those tricks back then, right? Where I would be aggressive, right? But that goes back to being aggressive and maybe I don't want to say not smart, but maybe not fully educated, but to really take a step back and look at the building and what it's telling you, right? And I try to instill that into every young firefighter now because it's truly going to help them be successful on the fire ground. It's truly going to help them make a move when they have to, but also how they can do it and can they recover from it.
You make a very good point, And you can take a look at the outside and try to guess what's going on. But you make a very good point in the article about void spaces. You can try to guess about these tenable areas, but man, if you're not guessing about the void spaces, you could
Right.
really get yourself in trouble in these upper floors.
Yeah.
Kind of go into that a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody looks at a building, and for a while it was, you know, I kept track for one year, a year and a half ago, uh, the amount of fires in my current position. So the out of, I think, 27 or 28 fires I kept track of that year were high clutter, which dare we say, like hoarding type fires. So I taught a lot of stuff on hoarding fires, but really looking at what it was, right? And it wasn't really that people were hoarding, they just have stuff. And in those type of buildings, those 2.5, those 3-story frames, those aren't just 3 apartments anymore. They could be 6 apartments. So people aren't being cluttery and dirty, they're just having stuff, but they have to put stuff somewhere. So we would notice a lot of high clutter fires that we would think, oh my God, this fire, we're never gonna be able to make a push on it, or it's impossible to landmark. Now add in the voids and everything else in the design features of those buildings, and you have a hell of a fire on your hands to overcome and to obviously navigate and map through, right? Because void spaces, I'm speaking truly from the article of the balloon frame, because that's what I deal with a lot, right? And the balloon frame is going to create that heat energy in those spaces around you, and you will be in what you think is a tenable position for a little bit until it's not, right? And we can get away with it a lot of times. A lot of times I can get there, we can do an unprotected search really quick, get ahead of the hand line, get upstairs, do a search. Oh, yeah, fire's rolling around on the second floor. We think we have extension into the third floor. We're up there in the third floor. It's nasty. There's good smoke. It's high heat. And then here comes the line. I got a line in place. Okay. And then we start opening up, and we do our business. It's the time when we don't have the line in place where that becomes difficult. In the practical, in the PowerPoint to this, because I do have a class on this, I have an actual helmet cam of a good fire like that, where we look and we watch the void space. We were watching ourselves crawling around on the top floor. Nasty, nasty, nasty. You could hear the roof saw above, cutting, 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 waiting on the hand line, delay in water. All the little things start to snowball, right? You remember from being on the fire floor. Think about it. What's the biggest thing that everyone starts to get worried when somebody starts yelling out, it's getting hot, where's the stairs, right? I've noticed that lately. When guys start asking, where's the stairs? Right now, they're already thinking I'm uncomfortable, right? They're thinking I'm uncomfortable because I got to find my way back to the stairs. And a lot of times we throw our Superman suit on, we can go really, really quick and really, really fast, right? But as I tell all my young students, what's the next coolest part of your body? They're like, what are you talking about? Your skin. That's gear saturation. When you're feeling gear saturation from your gear to your skin, it's too late already. There's no getting out of it. You can't get out of it. That's when people start to panic. That's when the human factor sets in. Hey, need a line. Is it coming? No, it's not coming yet. Oh, there's a delay. What do you mean there's a delay? Hey, can I get back to the stairs? Oh, there's people on the stairs. So all that kind of festers into those fireground pitfalls that will create an untenable position very, very quickly. Now, of course, topside ventilation is going to help tremendously. But again, is your department going to do topside ventilation all the time? Is staffing going to allow for it? Right? And a lot of times, is it going to be quick enough? You get a good second floor fire or wherever in a balloon frame building, and you have rapid fire spread, and you have that nasty chocolate milk smoke pushing from every eave of that building, it's there already. So you're going to be in it, you're going to be doing your business, and one shot of the hook into the sheetrock is going to create a way different move on the fire floor. And so that's, understanding those two things again. I thought that message was not something that people wouldn't be talking about, because I'm sure everybody has their own look at this. It was just something that hit home for me because it was something I've done a thousand times.
Yeah, you did a good job talking about the vent limited in those spaces. And
Hmm.
that's exactly what we're talking about. You get vent limited, all of a sudden you open it up and you could have a big problem.
Yeah.
But lately we've had a rash of 2.5 fires around here in our community, and we've really discussed different ways of trying to be aggressive in those knee walls. I mean, what are your suggestions on being aggressive with opening up those knee
Sure.
walls?
Sure. So, and it's a pitfall that the guys and gals on the fireground don't even know they're doing. I witnessed it 2 days ago at a fire. Typical fire in the back porches, got into the second floor, got into the third floor, fire front to back in the knee walls, tenable position on the top floor, but still rolling pretty good. Crews come up, rotating companies up. Hey, guys, start opening up. And they're opening up, they're working their asses off. Where do you think they're working? They're high, right? Everybody's hooking high. They're hooking high. Right, guys, get low, get low. You got to hook low. So it's understanding where that spread is coming from and really getting those hand lines in there and flooding the bays is what's going to do it. Right. And it just, it's good to see the change. It's good to see the change on the fire floor from tenable, because even if you have a lot of fire in the knee walls, so they had a good knock on the second floor, right? Good knock on the first floor. We're up on the third. Good fire rolling around in the knee walls. But you could still see it's a tenable space, really. It's not too bad. And then crews start aggressively opening up, and it goes, lights out. Now with lights out goes high heat. Now with high heat goes, hey, where's the stairs? Right? Hey, we got a line? Yeah, we got a line. Okay. So now if it does that and you don't have the line with you have to be smart enough to pull them back to a tenable spot. Tenable spot can just be a stairwell. It could be a couple floors. It could be a couple treads down in the stairwell. Hold up for a second, right? Don't live with an unlivable situation. Don't let them be super aggressive and shoot 5 rooms deep when you don't have a line up there. Because again, one wrong move, one wrong turn, in an apartment that's high clutter, all of a sudden, you're bouncing off the walls. It's getting worse, it's getting worse, it's getting worse. Then all of a sudden somebody's opening up from the stairwell, and then we have what? We have a complete, right? We have a complete drop down, and now it gets really, really shitty. So opening up low, right? And actually seeing, this is something I've always done, and I know a couple, at least in my place, a couple people started doing it, which makes me happy. If you're running the fire floor, I always give my, initial reports inside, my updated progress reports, but I always ask the chief or the aide, what does it look like from the outside? Right? Because I know what I'm looking at, but I want to hear what he's looking at. And just from the initial, yeah, it looks like you're getting it. So that tells me, all right, we're opening up the knee walls in the right location. We're getting water where it needs to be. Or I've had totally the other side of the coin. Yeah, you don't got it. Get off the floor. Fire's behind you. And I'm looking, I'm going, I don't see it. I can feel it. I don't see it. Right? Because we didn't have water where it needed to be. Right? As you tell these guys going up the stairs all the time, and where I work, we have a lot of new people. I think we've hired 60, 70 people in the last 3 years. So a lot of new people, not a lot of experience yet. And you just tell them in the stairwell, water makes it better, right? Water makes it better. When in doubt, flow water. And that's something that we were told coming on years ago. Get to the seat of the fire. Don't put water on smoke, right?
Right.
Get to the seat of the fire. Put water out. Put the fire out that way. And we bought into it because that's what we were taught. But now truly to cool the space and move forward, even if we don't have, a position of advantage initially, but we have high heat, just start cooling the space. At least the space that we're in will remain tenable until we can figure out what's going on. If we could figure out what's going on, at least we have water. Cool the common space, start gradually opening up, sliding forward. Hey, do I got fire pushing up here? Nope, keep going. Right? Open up a little bit more, keep going. Right? That's the only way we're going to get it. If we got top side vent above us, where is it? How close is it to us? Are we getting some sort of relief? And if we can look at it systematically and work ourselves through these places, the knee walls become less dangerous.
I,
Okay.
I can't agree with you more. We just had that exact problem a couple months ago where our captains were upstairs
Mhm.
doing everything possible to get into those void spaces, and they still were not reaching the void that was still actively involved. I mean,
Right.
it's frustrating. I think we got to a point where we started cutting everything we could from the exterior trying to get to it.
Hmm.
I was going to ask you that. Have you ever seen companies get creative with ventilation on the exterior, just trenching those exterior knee walls from a lower spot, trying to hit it? And I'm going to go back to your picture
So
to kind of go over the
yeah.
of why that
So
would
so what
be
I
somewhat effective.
what I've seen was, we're lucky because we could throw people at it, right? So if you're a department that can throw crews at it, we can pretty much make a difference eventually. So we're fortunate, but the departments that don't have a high staffing level, you need to get creative a little bit because you might not have, the staffing to open up as quick as you can.
Yeah.
You got to get into these spaces. I've noticed a tremendous difference in attic fires lately. Attic fires that might not be a walk up, that might just be an attic. For many times, we try to stuff somebody up in a hatch and run a line up there a little bit or try to get topside vent to go ahead and clear it. Where now, they cruised just a couple, maybe last week, I think, last Friday. They had a good fire in an attic and the crews did great on the fire floor. Good control on the fire floor. They opened up from front to back, held everybody up until a line was in place. And as soon as they had a line in place, they all started hooking
Yeah.
systematically, and that fire went out and had to go out in 5 minutes.
But-
So I've seen a different approach to
Right.
that than normally. I remember going up a scuttle ladder, getting stuffed in, one of these spaces with inch 3/4 and just working the line. I think remote water application, it still has to be something that's in your playbook.
Right.
Reach of the stream for sure has to be in your playbook. Um, you know, and that's something, again, the aggressive movement of the hand line. How aggressive does it have to be? Getting a slug of water to somewhere, just getting it there is going to make it better.
The-
The movement of the hand line.
Right.
I've kind of taken a few steps back on the movement of the hand line. For years, I've taught, ceiling wall floor, whip that line around as fast as you can. And as I've gotten more involved with the UL stuff and looking at the bigger picture, I've kind of, said to, openly, what, now when we do this whip the line, it's more of a recruit competency to me than anything that's really going to be effective on the fire ground. And some will say, well, what do you mean? Well, whipping the line around works well. Well, I want you to take that knee wall layout and say, all right, we're going to move in and we got fire in the knee walls. We got good energy around us. It's black, it's shitty smoke. And we got a little fire dropping down or poking through, and we're going to go in there. We're going to whip that line around, ceiling, wall, floor. What's it putting out? Right? It's not getting anywhere. To me, the biggest change in mine was, again, being able to watch on the fire floor instead of actually having to be doing the tasks, and watching a hand line move into a common hallway, and then watching, fire gases lighting off from rollover coming out of a back room or a bedroom, and they're rolling down the hall. They found that flow path of that vent point, and they're moving, and watching a Loslman come in and start whipping that line around and really watch where the water goes. It went nowhere where the fire was. All it did was flood the floor and hit around. Now, I'm not saying, listen, when you get into a room that's fully involved, you got to sweep the floor, you got to do your business. I understand that. But where does that line need to be initially getting in that door? It needs to be high. It needs to be high up, needs to get that slug of water. It needs to go out and create that rain effect, kick the fire back into the room. So now we could advance easier, okay, more manageable, right? Last thing I want to do is gas somebody out when they're trying to go down a hallway, and they're losing the line. Witnessed that many of times. So I think that, coupled with understanding truly what's going to happen when we open up and getting the line where it needs to be instead of wasting that effort, will go a much longer, go a long way on the fireground for sure.
Yeah. Knowing the anatomy is so important of those structures, and just knowing where to try to place water, where to try to vent, where to try to cut those holes is so important. So you made a very good comment about that. I want to key in on that. You have so many new people, and
Yeah.
it's pretty common in the fire service that we're getting this new generation in there. But your article hit, to understand the tenable spaces, you really have to understand fire spread. You have to understand construction and really fire behavior. How long does
Mhm.
that take, and how do you build that proficiency in a fire officer? Are there any tricks to learn that earlier? I don't think there are, but
So with everything, it's time and experience, right? And it's tough to tell a new person, right? We're on the tail end now of a 19-week academy, and it's tough to tell a person, it takes time and experience. Because when I got on the job at 22 years old, I didn't want to hear time and experience. I wanted to show you I was the guy right away, right? I'm here to make a difference. Okay. Time and experience certainly helps. Going to fires helps. All right, there is no substitution. It's just getting fireground, getting fireground work for sure. Um, but what can we educate the newer fire officer? Another thing in the culture now is, some people, generations had to wait a long time to become a company officer. Right now, things are different. It's sometimes 3 years. We have a brand new company officer. And they're here, they're it. And then, I use it as you can have a brand new company officer, you just made officer in 3 years, and then they can have someone who just got out of recruit academy that 10 weeks ago didn't know what a fire truck was, and you're on the street. I mean, that's the reality of this, right? So understanding how to teach them how to understand to be safe and effective, to operate in their scope, and to understand what their scope is a tremendous undertaking. And that's why I figured if we can just pair building construction, because listen, if you're a new officer, you've been in the books, you should know building construction. Building construction in your district, work in your scope, understand fire behavior, right? And I'm not telling you have to be on the other side of the coin. You don't have to be at UL. You don't have to be, looking at every graph that has to do with science. But you do have to understand what the fire is telling you. That has to be the message. Understand what the fire is telling you is going to keep you safe. Pure and simple. Is it always going to go right? No. Are you going to have pitfalls? Yes. But your chances of being successful, understanding that is going to me, that's the message, right? Again, going back to what I said before, I can teach you tech rescue. I could teach you anything you want to learn, but I can't teach you how to come up with your own playbook as a company officer. You have to learn that through time and experience. But if you can understand the backbone of what it is not to die in a burning building, okay, that's where it needs to start. And that's what's going to kill you. The building or the fire that's in it, right? And if you can understand that and try to navigate through that, you're going to be successful on the fireground for sure. That's how I look at the big picture of it.
Jason, what do you got?
I think it's a good way to. I think it's a good way to wrap up. I think that's perfect. You gave so much information and
I hope you enjoyed it.
great lessons.
Now, great
Oh, it
lesson.
was wonderful. Yeah, yeah, great stuff.
I
Peter,
appreciate it.
if people that watch the show want to reach out to you, what's
Yep.
the best way to get a hold of you?
You can reach out to me via email at p.morotto, Morotto, at missioncit.com. Uh, should I give a phone number to something like this, or does that usually not?
That's up to you. Maybe not. Yeah,
You could reach out to
yeah,
me, or anything on social media platform. If you go to Mission CIT, you'll find us. You can go out there and believe me, if you get a hold of us, I can help you out navigate whatever you might need or any questions you might have. And every program that I create, I don't mind sharing it. Believe me, it's all about the message of all of us learning. So if anybody wants to reach out, they can reach me on the social media platform Mission CIT or email.
perfect, perfect, outstanding job. I sat here. I didn't interject a lot because I was listening and looking at the article and the pictures,
Yeah.
and it was great.
I hope you like it. Again, I'm humbled, guys. I
Oh,
really appreciate you reaching out. I actually, I called PJ Norwood, where PJ's a good buddy of mine today, and I said, "Hey, I'm going on a podcast." And he goes, "Oh, which one?" And I told him, he's like, "Oh, make sure you say hello to those guys," because he's been great. He's been great in the whole thing. With my whole different look at this. Yeah. So he's been great. He's been great with all of this, and really gave me a different look into the modern fire dynamics that maybe I would not have looked at.
yeah,
And I'm very thankful for that. So seeing what those guys are doing and what PJ's done for the modern fire, for UL and for all the fire engineering stuff, I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely important stuff.
shout out to PJ.
Absolutely. BJ actually texted us today and warned us about
Mhm.
you. Now he said you're a great guy, and that
Oh, yeah, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
So
Thank
no,
you.
we're glad we had you on, and it's
It's
very
kind of
informative.
it's kind of this was great writing an article, and I didn't know what to expect. I didn't think it was going to get published. I didn't know how the whole thing goes with that, so I was very happy. So it's kind of sparked me. I'm hoping to write some more things because this is great. I love the interaction of it.
Yeah,
And again, I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Well, that's a great segue. Basically our conclusion, and that is, you know, if you've got something good to share, please send Diane your thoughts, your written article, and there's a very good possibility you're going to get published if it's something that it's got some really good educational background to it, and just like this article. So we're looking for tactical articles. So make sure, like I said,
I will.
get them to Diane, 100%.
I will do that.
Yep.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And I'll find them.
Okay.
I read them
He's
all.
our talent acquisition. Yeah.
So, so I put in this year. I put in for FDIC this year to teach. I didn't get selected, but I'm hoping I'm going to re-put in this one for next year to do the class. So we'll see how that goes. I'm hoping to get down there and do that. I am going out to FDIC with PJ this year to do some stuff. So
Awesome.
it's, but I'm glad to be a part of it.
Well, we'll be looking for you for sure.
Look forward to seeing you
Absolutely.
there.
Thank you. I'll see you there.
Yep.
Jason, why don't you take us home here, pal?
All right. So another great episode of learning about tactics and the impact. And thanks for Peter for coming on and talking about Tenable space for firefighters and for firefighting and the dangers of void spaces and fire spread and travel. For Jim Silvernail and on behalf of FDIC, we're always thankful to David Rhodes and Diane for allowing us to put these shows on. And FDIC registration and housing is open. Make sure you go to FDIC.com and get signed up. And we'll see you next time on Tactical Impact.
Thank you, guys.
Prepare, respond, survive. When seconds count, train with the best. Fire facilities, custom steel towers built for real-world fire training. Be ready, be resilient.
At the Fire Store, you'll find everything but the truck, helmets, boots, turnout gear, and more that you can count on. Shop now at thefirestore.com.